What's good, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, and that is presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, and that is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I am your host, Anthony. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. In tonight's episode of Disguise Coverage, we're just a few short days away from real kind of Buffalo Bills football as they kick off their preseason against the Chicago Bears this upcoming Saturday. And with that being said, this episode, we will be diving into what to watch for, who to watch for against the Chicago Bears and the whys behind it, players, position groups, depth chart aspects, schematic, scheme, coaching, points, structure, anything and everything is up for discussion in this episode of Disguise Coverage. Also, little announcement piece, Disguise Coverage will be live after each one of the Buffalo Bills preseason games, as has been tradition the past couple of years. So I will be doing the Buffalo Bills post-game show for each one of the preseason games starting this upcoming Saturday against the Chicago Bears. But to backtrack for tonight's episode, what to watch for versus the Bears in week one of the preseason, who to watch for, the whys behind it all. That's where we are going to be diving into. And I say we because I am not alone. Welcoming back to the show, and he's back on camera for the first time in a long time. I am very excited to welcome back my boy, friend of the show, friend of Cover One, friend of football, and good people all over, Mr. Kendall Mirsky. Kendall, I'm very excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time. Welcome back. And I'm glad your parents let you stay up late and turn the camera on.
All right. The parents thing.
All right, I'm out.
It never eludes me. It's always here. It's stuck to me. No, I'm happy to be here. Very happy to be back. Happy to find the time and you making the time to allow me to be back on. I mean, it's great to reunite. I always love talking Bills. Don't get a chance to do it as much anymore. So
I could see you at we could be 80 years old.
Oh no.
And out in public. I'd be like, oh, your parents let you come out. I would do that.
Yeah,
I will do that forever.
It's just it's never going away at this point.
It's never gonna stop. So again, I kind of laid the foundation for what this episode is going to be, but high level for you going into this game is there any one thing that sticks out in your mind? Is there any one particular thing you're gravitating towards? Is kind of where's your head at going into this game, given the roster turnover we've seen this offseason, what we've seen in camp thus far, what we've seen at the scrimmage, what's being reported, what's being talked about, what's being shown? What kind of high level things are on your mind kind of going into this game?
I mean, high level specifically, it would be the personnel and formational trends, because what is life going to be like under a new offensive coordinator? So are we going to see two tight ends most of the time? Are we going to get more condensed as a formation? Just what are we going to see from Joe Brady? I think that's the highest level thing, because last year, obviously we only got half a season to sample size, but then on top of that, Dawson Knox, I believe, was injured for the first 2 weeks that he was taking over as offensive coordinator. So even looking at the stats of 12 personnel or just 2+ tight ends on the field, the splits at week 10, it doesn't really tell a story, because the injury of Dawson Knox changed so many things, and even Dalton Kincaid kind of getting, banged up a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough to really evaluate the two tight ends thing. And then I feel like symbiotically, the two tight ends thing also invites the conversation of condensing the overall formation itself. You have two or less wide receivers out on the field. I feel like there's less reason to spread it out. All that being said, I mean, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox have the ability to go spread out, which I suppose talks to a whole nother conversation of multiplicity. But yeah, I'd say high level, but not as broad as where I just went on that tangent there. High level is definitely just formationally and personnel wise. What are we going to see? Because we're not going to see starters the whole game. So what is the, shell of this Joe Brady offense going to look like?
I like that as a jump off point for this. And really, because it just aligns with so much of the work I've done this offseason. So much of my focus has been on and you know this, like once the season ends, I'm going and I'm watching tape, NFL league wide, and I do it in season too, but there's only so much time. But once the offseason hits, I'm really looking at the trendsetters and the best teams offensively, defensively, and kind of gravitating towards what do we expect to see from a league-wide schematic trend standpoint in this season and the following season and so on and so forth. And my big thing for me this year was how many of the top offenses had reduced formational width and how they condensed formations and the personnel that those teams had. And I've talked about the analytics of it. I've broken down tape on it. I've spoken with Mina Kimes about it on the show. I've spoken with JP Acosta from SB Nation about it. So much of my focus has been on kind of changing how the Bills have operated offensively from a schematic standpoint, because they're much different from a body types perspective at the wide receiver room. And then when you combine the wide receivers with the tight ends, you just have this overwhelming group of size, range, and athleticism, and the ability to function in both the run and the pass. And, you talking about like 12 personnel and, being able to go spread or, go condense. So much of what the Bills are going to be able to do, I think, rides on being able to run the football and pass the football out of 11 and out of 12, where with either group, you can go condensed with 11 and run it down someone's throat.
Yeah, give the same looks in either personnel group.
Yes, and you can really go condensed or spread with both of them.
Yeah.
And that, like, you can access so much of the menu without having to turn the page with either 11 or 12. That's definitely a point. Like, I have a lot of individual player focus going into this first game.
Sure.
Mainly because of the roster turnover, but that schematic point I think is such a fun one.
Yeah. It's new personnel as well. It's a new coach.
And we don't get like all the necessarily like the bells and whistles in these preseason games, but like you said here, you do kind of get that shell of what your offense is defensively too, like what you are from a structure standpoint. It'll show. Are you going to get all the designer stuff and specific game plan aspects and mismatch pieces? No, but you're going to get the bones of what that side of the ball will look like. And I think that's a really interesting point to talk about, because again, we're not going to see everything put on tape right now, but the kind of the identity or the philosophy or the shell or the bones of the offense will get put on display in each of these games, starting with, this first one Saturday. And yeah, I think that's a really fun thing, because I really do think this offense is going to go in a different direction than they have in the past with Josh Allen.
I think the interesting thing to this too, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm definitely more out of practice with the Bills than you are nowadays. Joe Brady, what he did in LSU versus what he did in Carolina. Two completely different things, right? And obviously he wasn't the OC in either stint, but LSU was more spread and Carolina was more like condensed to tight ends, right? Yes, okay, so I'm not wrong in saying that.
LSU was
so
full,
that's what's
like,
so interesting,
spread, yeah.
That's what's so interesting coming into like his first full season. Like, which is he going to adopt? And obviously, one was more successful than the other, and the spread was more successful. So, thank you, Mike. But yeah, so it's so interesting because we've seen both sides of this Joe Brady experience, just in terms of him being an NFL staffer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be curious what he does at his first going into his first full season with a full off season.
That's such a good point, because I think people, when Brady took over last year, so much the conversation was like, well, Carolina sucked and Matt Rule is terrible, so let's throw that out and let's just focus on, he was the passing game coordinator for that Joe Burrow LSU team, and look what they did. Like, that's what the Bills are going to be like. It's like, that's really hard to replicate at the NFL
level.
It's
not his offense, like...
No. And also, like, who else you had? You had Burrow, you had Chase, you had Jefferson, you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like Randy Moss's kid was your tight end. Terrace Marshall.
About Thaddeus Moss.
Right? I think Terrace Marshall was the wide receiver 3 on that team. Like,
probably.
They had a squad. Like, that's one of the best individual team seasons ever. And he comes from that. Yeah, absolutely. Like, he comes from that Sean Payton tree. And so you see those elements, and I think you've seen more of who he actually is at Carolina and then in Buffalo. But I think more importantly, like, him coming from that Payton tree, he's just going to be a dude who I think understands where the league is going and what league-wide stuff will be. Like, he's going to understand the bigger picture and then how to morph his team around that. Because Sean Payton has never been he's at his core in terms of like what he is and who he is, but he's been a guy who's been very fluid, been very able to adapt to his surroundings. And also, similar to how this Bills team is now built, has never really been a guy who had like a true stud wide receiver one. Like the best wide receiver in the Sean Payton years was Marcus Colston.
Yeah, probably.
And then you had like Devery Henderson and all these dudes. Like Peyton lived through Drew Brees, as one would expect, but Jimmy Graham was a monster. The running backs were a monster. Like Pierre, like, and I'm not talking like, oh, Reggie Bush and Deuce McAllister. I'm talking like Pierre Thomas. Like Pierre Thomas was catching like 90 passes a year in the Sean Payton offense. And like
he was a fantasy stud for a little bit.
Absolutely. He would, dude, you could get like Pierre Thomas would score no touchdowns. Yeah. And he would give you like 13 points every week because of catches and yards and what he would do. And then going to the end of the Peyton run in New Orleans, what Ingram was, what Kamara was, and Brady's ability to kind of maximize the RBs was seen right away.
Yeah,
but I think seeing more of what he's going to be isn't necessarily dependent on what he was at the back end of last year. Because like you said, it wasn't his offense. You can't uninstall and install a new one. So this is really the first time that we get to see what it looks like fully, his verbiage, his idea, his window dressing, his concepts, in addition to his layering and sequencing that we got to see a little bit of. But now kind of getting to see the full piece is something I'm really intrigued to see. Obviously, you are as well. Obviously, a lot of people in the chat are intrigued to see as well. Kendall, anything else high level before we dive into it?
Well, relative to the Joe Brady thing, it is a little funny. Sure. Like, we'll see a little bit of like the Keon Coleman thing. Okay, so you brought up Marquise Colston, right?
Yes.
And his archetype, like
good call.
Right, there's a little bit of a similarity there, and then obviously you said about spreading the football around and the running backs itself, but no, I just thought that little player, no, it's not a player comp, but player archetypes similarities with those two. I just thought that was a little bit funny.
Bigger bodied, like wide receiver type ones. I think Keon's way more athletic than Colston was.
100%. But like the utilization of like a big guy out of the slot, like Marquise Colston wasn't traditionally athletic, but he was very functionally athletic for the first football specifically. Like are you looking up like his RAS?
100%. No, I'm 100% looking up his. Wow, holy hell! So, I feel like I'm just gonna share the screen. Actually, no, I don't know how I
could see your face like lighting up. I was like, he's interested.
His rookie year, and again, these are just raw stats. So, but his rookie year, 70 catches, 1,038 yards. His second year, 98 catches, 1,202 yards. And then his third year he only played in 11 games, so he only had 760 catches. The next 4 years, over 1,000 yards receiving in each of them. 2 of the years he had over 1,100 yards receiving. 3 of those seasons he had 80 catches or more. He was extremely productive. Again, that was at a time he played from 2006 to 2015. So this is still when like everybody wasn't full like uber spread. Let's throw the ball 50 times a game. He was extremely productive. I did not realize that. Like I was always a Marcus Colston fan.
Yeah, he was a stud. He was very consistent.
And Lauren nails it too from an aesthetic perspective. She says like Colston filled out in a uniform better than 99.9% of it. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I didn't realize he was that. And I should have because I had him in fantasy a couple years. He was.
No, looking at these two Saints offenses for Joe Brady's overlap with the Saints, 17 and 18, I believe it was. Very spread around offense, like Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara at the end, Michael Thomas, Willie Snead, Ted Ginn Jr. Like,
wow, man, I love Mike. I will defend
early Michael Thomas.
Yeah,
right?
Slant God, Michael Thomas. His first 3 years were crazy productive. But also another dude, different stylistically than Keon Coleman as well, but not a burner. Good
not
route
like
runner.
The traditional X. Like he has prototypical X size. Yes. But like athletic profile, it's not completely check every single box.
No, he was not a vertical threat at all, but he was so precise and so technical and physical and smart. And that's really been
made it work for him.
He's the best Peyton wide receiver for me, just from like a production standpoint, because his first 3 years were like crazy. Colston's right up there, especially from a longevity perspective. But like we could like play this game all the time. Like name like random Saints receivers, and they're not like studs. It's like, like Ted
So
Ginn and
this is
or not
kind
Ted
of
Ginn.
the interesting thing with like how much did Joe Brady take away from the Sean Payton idea and philosophy? And Sean Payton was like, okay, so Michael Thomas, what are you good at? Oh, it kind of fits perfectly with my short Drew Brees who can't see over the line and make deep
Yeah.
down the middle throws. Like, it's easier to just hit the slant, hit
Yeah.
the quick slant. Like if you see it's there, hit it. If you don't, go to read 2, go to read 3.
Yeah.
And it just kind of fit the offense. And I forgot where I heard this, and I'm sure you already know this, but like Joe Brady's asking each player, like, what's your favorite play?
Mm,
You, like Khalil Shakir, what's your favorite play? Like you, Josh Allen, what's your favorite play? Dalton Kincaid, what's your favorite play? And you
yeah.
kind of mold it all together and you figure out, okay, like, so these are the staples that I need to do for quick hitters for this guy, this guy. And he's building the offense around what the player does best instead of building the offense around what he knows best.
Yeah. And I don't want to make this comparison, but that was like the thing that disappointed me the most about Rex Ryan because I
It's my
was
system.
that, and that's what got me. Like
Yeah.
and I've said on the show before, like Ed Reed is my favorite player of all time. I was a legit Ravens fan. I still kind of am. Like I root for them after the Bills and the 49ers because they were my boyhood team as well. But I was pumped when Rex Ryan got hired. Like I know how he
Yeah,
fizzled
same.
out. Like I know how he fizzled out with the Jets and what happened. But he just always had these great defenses. And I was so disappointed. Like, and I loved his on the front foot, attack style minded of defense and what he
Mhm.
was able to do with, granted, he had some tremendous players in Baltimore and with the Jets, but he got a lot out of, like, he made Jim Leonard was a sick safety because of like what he was able to do with Rex Ryan, what Rex Ryan was able to do with him. And we were coming off of that cold front, front four with Jerry and Mario and Kyle and just Darius and everything that they could do. And I really was like, man, like Rex is going to lean into this further. It's going to be great. He's going to be able to
Mhm.
weaponize the back seven and oh man. And then he was just like, nope, I'm going to try and put all these square pegs into a round hole
Right.
and make everybody fit. And that was so, because I just think that's
It's
such a base.
archaic.
It's 100% archaic. And especially nowadays where like you only get like 2 or 3 seasons to show what's up. Like
Yeah, nowadays. Oh my god.
you can't make those dudes fit a system that doesn't work. So it's not like you were like, well, I'm going to run my system and I'm going to weed out the guys who don't fit it. You're not going to get that time. And
Mhm.
it drove me so nuts that like the offense ended up being fine. We had this power run game with McCoy and that offensive line. The defense was the problem. And he just tried to take something that wasn't broken and tried to fix it into his
Yeah.
mold and his vision. And it is so archaic and it just seems so basic with the idea of like, oh, okay, like let me look at what I have and build my team accordingly. And I think what we got from Bean and McDermott and obviously Joe Brady's input as well going into this season and this offseason is wanting to shift the identity and the nature and the philosophy of this offense, and then bringing in the right players from a size and body type standpoint in order
Mhm.
to execute that. I don't think this was like, okay, well, these are the players we got. Okay, now we have to do this thing. I think the identity and the direction was set already, and then they put those pieces in motion with
Right.
everybody they brought in for that kind of holistic viewpoint. Granted, the Stephon Diggs timeline can kind of throw a wrench into that particularly. And so, yeah, it's just there's so much to look for with this offense. So
Mhm.
much of it regular season will determine it, but kind of getting a little glimpses in the preseason, I think it could tell us a little bit, which is
I
nice.
will say before we move on, because I know we're going next topic, it's not that I don't feel the same way about Bobby Babich. It's that I know that defense isn't going to change a lot. Like it's still Sean McDermott at the like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's obviously it might be a different person calling plays, different defensive coordinator, but it doesn't feel the same in terms of holistic changes.
No, I agree. I think you'll see like little tweaks like maybe more blitzes, from like 3 percentage points or something, or maybe
Right?
more like simulated pressures or creeper pressures. But then
Yeah.
even that, I think like maybe we would have seen that last year if Milano didn't go down and if
Yeah,
Daquan
maybe.
didn't go down. Like all
Yeah,
these
so I mean it's all
injuries.
muddied anyways
Yeah.
then.
But I do think it is kind of like not necessarily saying this, but I feel like Sean McDermott in the interview was like, "This is how I want the defense to be. Are you going to do it that way? Yes or no?"
Are
And then
you
back, yeah,
okay with this?
yeah,
If you
like that's
are, sign here.
yeah, that's all right. Oh, you are? Okay, cool. Here's the clipboard. Fill out these 3 pages of paperwork. If you need anything else, come back in my office. Let me know. Like, yeah, I think he had to be on board. I think Babich is more. I think the offense is more wholesale identity and philosophical changes that are in line with league-wide trends, whereas the defense is more like Babbage kind of adding some layers and some tweaks
his
to a formula.
flavor to it.
Yes, to a formula that's already established and kind of
Yeah.
put in motion there.
Yeah.
Anything else, or should we dive into it?
Nah, I'm good there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So for those playing at home and watching this live, I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kendall would as well. Kendall comments all the time about how awesome the chat is, so don't let Kendall down, especially now that he's back on camera. But it's one of my favorite aspects of going live. So anything you folks got, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, throw them up into the chat as always. But also throw up into the chat what you're watching for, who to watch for. Is it a specific player? Is it a position group? Is it a side of the ball? Is it a coaching piece? Is it some random? Are you just looking for more play action or more motion, like any specific niche detail or anything and everything you got? Throw it up into the chat so we can kind of discuss it, breaking down, go back and forth a little bit. Kendall, you are the guest. I'm going to edit the banner because I didn't put and who, and I'm annoyed at myself for not doing it. This is just amateur hour.
Shoddy workmanship.
Just really Bush League subpar stuff. I changed it. It's back up. Kendall, you're the guest. Do you have these ranked? Are they all equal for you? So for those who don't know, we're each going with our top three. They could be the same. We don't know. We're lying to each other stuff. Do you have them ranked? Are they all equal? Do you want to start with one in particular?
I want to start with one in particular because it's broad. I wouldn't say it's a ranking, but it's broadly just rookies. I mean, that's especially with this draft class. It's a big draft class. Looks like the biggest in close to 10 seasons for the Bills
in NFL history.
Oh my God. No. I'm just like scrolling through the Bills years right now. I'm like, yep, this is more than anything until it looks
Remember
like
when going into it, everybody was like, there's so many picks. Bean is definitely going to package them and trade them.
Definitely trading them. I mean, we say that every year, but the roster we hit the reset. So it makes sense to, draft a lot of players and see how many you can churn into cheap labor for the next 4 seasons. So
that's fair.
I'm very interested to see how a lot of these young guys play.
Real quick, hold on. Did you see this comment? Just the Tippy Canoe said the last time Kendall was on here, we were all having a crush on Raheem Blackshear. You brought that back.
Definitely not factually correct, but I love the reference to Bill's lore.
Actually, it might be maybe the last. No, not the last time.
No way.
Yeah. No, I'm talking from an on-camera perspective.
Oh, maybe. Yeah,
but no, but that would have been a preseason film room, and you continued through the year. But I like the lore.
No, I love the lore. Like it's a great lore reference for Bill's culture.
Sorry, I popped for that comment. Yeah, it's not Kendall's. Kendall's been on a bunch. Even like the last year, but yeah, I like that a lot. That's good.
Kind of scattered throughout the year.
Yeah, sprinkle.
No, yeah. So yeah. Anyways, rookies. I mean, obviously, we know the wide receiver change. Keon Coleman, like, excited to see if he gets snaps, how many snaps. Like, I don't know. There hasn't been news on Bill's playing time yet, right?
No, we haven't.
I know Caleb Williams is playing. That's honestly probably an honorable mention.
I'm super pumped for that. Yeah.
Honestly, that should be an honorable mention that us as Bills fans get to see the number 1 overall pick, like, kind of first, because no one else is. Well, maybe some people are going to be watching it because it's on NFL Network, but otherwise, I don't know.
I think it's cool. Two of their 3 games are on.
I'm hype about that. Not being in Buffalo because I get to watch 2 games.
I've been thinking of that. Like, all my years living in New York, the Bills were terrible, and so they got no play. And like, once I moved up here, like, I feel like every one of their preseason games is always on NFL Network, and I'm like, okay, now that I'm up here,
what a waste.
I know, I'm so annoyed.
Yeah. So that's honorable mention. We get to see Caleb Williams just passively as we're watching other things. Yes. So Cole Bishop's not going to play. That sucks.
No.
Dwayne Carter, haven't really heard a lot of reports about him in camp, so I'm curious to see like what he does on film.
Yeah.
Ray Davis, I'm very excited about. Same. Haven't heard any reports, but honestly, that's kind of like a storyline within a storyline that I'm watching, which is rookies, but then also like backup running backs. Like, how is that all going to shake out? Yeah, very happy about Ray Davis. I like that draft pick a lot. I heard Cedric Van Pran Granger isn't getting play. Like,
he's been working with the third team for the most part. And that's been pretty pretty much from the onset. I forget who's been I've been tweeting it out. It's been like a mix of like Clapp and
really? Wow. Usually the veteran, the like one-off veteran they sign every offseason just kind of gets lost.
Yeah, it's been like literally a combination of like Clapp, Alec Anderson, Britton's been getting some work at like guard and mixed in with like the threes and sometimes with the twos. Yeah, it's so VPG has pretty much kind of been like the third team center for the most part. Alec
Damn.
Anderson and Clapp have kind of have rotated back and forth between like
Yeah.
you'll get a series where like Alec Anderson's at center, and then the next one, like Will Clapp will do some stuff at center and Anderson is at guard and like vice versa.
Are they even wasting their time with Anderson at tackle anymore?
No, I have not seen him. It's pretty much
Cool.
been Vandermark
And the
and
rookies.
yeah, Vandermark. I think if I'm correct, let me go back in my notes. Because I want to say something that I don't think was crazy. Yeah, Clayton has gotten some time with the second team. Not a ton, but like we've seen that. Oh, I'm sorry, not Clayton. Travis or Tylen Grable has gotten some work with the second team. Collins has pretty much been at left guard. There's been a couple snaps where he's been at tackle. Anderson's not really getting burned. He's pretty much getting burned between center and.
No, I'm happy with that. I remember watching his tape when they got him as a UDFA, and I remember the plan was to kind of play him flex between tackle and guard.
Anderson?
Yeah, Anderson. Yeah. And I liked his tape at guard. I thought he was solid. He could move. And
he's
I was
nasty.
like, yeah, we should try
he's
it out.
Got some real like meanness to it. Like, he's trying to bury dudes and push them through the turf, which I
always love that demeanor. Nice. Yeah, you got to have a couple of guys like that. If you got 5 out there, a couple got to be mean like that.
Right.
But yeah, so there's just like a lot of guys. Obviously, I really want to see Javon Solomon. I imagine. So
Same.
I should go back to Van Prank Ranger. Okay. If he's that low on the depth chart, that means he's probably going to get a lot of time in this game.
Yeah, that's actually
and the whole preseason. Like as I go down this list now, like these guys, we're probably going to see a lot of them. So that's kind of why I'm excited about this big draft class. But yeah, Javon Solomon, like I'm very excited to see his unique build. Like
nice
get put to work on the field. I've seen nothing. And then the tackles and Daquan Hardy, no idea how I heard they're not using him in the slot. They're actually using him in a little bit outside, and then obviously as a returner.
He's been getting both. So the scrimmage was a good example. He was playing in the slot, but then also playing outside, and he had a really nice interception, low red zone. I believe it was either quarters or cover 2. But there was nobody underneath, so he carried his man vertical. And if the ball had been put in like a good spot, he would have gotten the PBU, but it was underthrown a little bit. He went up, brought it down, INT. He's had a couple really good plays in camp.
Like and athletic, showing the ball skills type of thing.
Yes, like sticky in
Makes
coverage.
Sense as a returner.
Yep, like forget about the return stuff, like seeing like plays on the ball, sticky in coverage, physical. Honestly, so much so that I went back and watched his tape from this year, and I went right to the Ohio State game again. And it shows like he's not covering Harrison because they kept King on Harrison wherever he went. But he's going toe-to-toe with the Ohio State receivers, and he's making plays downfield. Like Penn State's running a lot of cover 1, so he's in man coverage in the slot a ton. He's getting pulled into the box and making plays against the run, like chopping dudes down. Yeah, I'm very excited to see him. He's looked really good. Him and
it's just another long line of late drafted cornerbacks by this tenure that they just keep getting them right. Yeah,
that's fair. Oh, I like this from Lauren. She says the equipment team probably can't get the font small enough to fit VPG's name on the jersey. Secret deciding factor. I love that. The idea.
What if it gets
like,
curved? What if they have to curve it?
God, I like a baseball jersey. Yeah. I love the idea of the equipment team secretly rooting against him because they're like, dude, I don't want to sew.
Dude, this sucks. I hate this. Every week it's a new jersey with this guy. He keeps ripping them.
He's got a hyphen in his name. There's so many vowels. This sucks. Yeah, I love the idea of them like secretly rooting.
They're like
him.
Losing money on his font every letter they have to print.
They're
this
like,
guy stinks.
I would say the team is like super in the red because they're spending so much money on like letters and fonts and stitching because they have to keep going through VPG nameplates. That's good.
All right. Sorry to him. I am very excited about him.
And to your point, though, he's going to get like, and that's a significant factor as well that I like that you mentioned. Like when you have some roster turnover and you have a big draft class and you have guys that are trying to make the team, and you have decisions to be made on the
There's
roster and
more
the depth
battles
chart.
than we've seen in like 4 or
Yes.
5
Like
seasons.
it's nice to have these games. I mean, you and I watch a ton of preseason games anyway, because there's like,
Yeah.
oh
Well,
yeah,
we're
that guy
sickos.
that like the Rams took in the 7th round. I loved him at Oklahoma State, so I'm
Is
gonna
he gonna
watch this
get on
preseason.
waivers?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, so I'm watching the 4th quarter of like Rams and Raiders, super intent because they have this one
Yeah.
guy I like. But I think it gives more oomph to these games because
Yeah.
people want to see Ray
Storylines.
Davis. They want to see, how much is Keon Coleman playing? Okay, I want to see what Daquan Hardy looks like. Okay, I want to see how Jamarcus Ingram is playing in the 3rd quarter, whatever the hell. Yeah, it gives you more reason to kind of tune in and continue to watch.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. I that's really why I broadly, like, this is the first one I wanted to talk about. It kind of hits just like a lot of things, very, mile wide, inch deep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Like you said.
rookies in this draft class, a lot of turnover with this roster. I'm excited to see how the rookies fit in because we're going to see a lot of them play in
Yeah.
particular, probably less so than the free agents. But yeah, there's a lot of new faces. So I'm excited to see the rookies in particular in their playing time.
I literally almost did the exact same thing for a topic.
Right.
Because when I had Joe Marino on to do like what to watch for in training camp, one of his things was like the rookies. And I was like, that's a good thing. I was like, I should do that for the preseason game. And I was gonna, and I didn't. So I think it's very funny. That you
It's
did that,
simple, but it
yes.
works. Like, it's kind of the first thing that comes to your brain. You're like, nah, that's too easy. And then you're like, well, it kind of, makes sense. I'm
It's
excited
also
about it.
significant. Like the rookies are
Yeah.
going to play a role. Like, how much Keon Coleman?
Whether it's not this year, like, these rookies could make a significant impact onto like how long Sean McDermott stays around in Buffalo. Like, there is a ripple effect to this draft class.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this a couple years ago, like of how important these upcoming off seasons were as Allen's contract started to kick in. Lo and
Yeah,
behold, here
exactly.
we
That's the
are.
other.
Like,
So
yes,
many ripples. Like, it's
yes.
endless. I was being hyperbolic with the McDermott part, but like, it
No,
goes to
you
show.
could be though. Like, you
Yeah.
need to hit on this cheap labor while you can, and
Right,
if you're not
exactly.
hitting on it, that means you're probably kind of flailing around in obscurity, and
You
people
don't
are
want to.
also
Yeah.
gonna no, and people are also gonna come for your head because they're like, well, you got Josh Allen, you're not hitting on your guys, you're not developing your guys.
Yeah,
That
you're
like that,
wasting.
if you
Yeah.
don't hit on these classes once you pay the QB, it's a fast track to kind of be bounced if you're the head coach or the GM. Like, I think there is some kind of credence to that statement. And yeah, I think these rookies are a huge storyline. Like, how much, whether you're going from Keon Coleman all the way down to like Grable at the end and even the UDFAs, like, and honestly, like a lot of the rookies play into.
Oh my God, I forgot about Frank Gore Jr.
Baby Gore. That's right. Yeah.
I
Like he's
totally
looked
forgot
good.
about him.
He's
Yeah.
looked good. Yeah. I've actually been like super. And it also harkens me back to as being like a Miami guy. Frank Gore tearing his ACLs are the only reason that Clinton Portis got snaps and Willis McGahee got snaps because Gore kept getting hurt. And there's interviews like if when they sit down and talk with like Portis and McGahee, both of them are like, "Oh, Frank Gore was the best dude in the running back room." Like, they're like,
Which is
we don't even.
ironic because of whose careers in the NFL were cut short.
Yep. And Frank Gore
so crazy.
Frank Gore just kept tearing ACLs and was like, it's fine. I'm just going to come back and play for 20 years in the NFL and be like he's like a top 10 rusher of all time, like from a yards perspective.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I totally didn't acknowledge the irony.
What's a fun thing? If you ever can, go to YouTube and watch Frank Gore's like pre-ACL injury highlights at Miami. Yeah, dude, he's just like, he was so
different.
Good, so wild. And yeah, his kid looks really good. Baby Gore has been sweet. The running back's been showing out, but yeah, he's rocking the 20 like his dad, and he's just got juice and vision. He runs similar with the high knees and the feet and just punching the ground. Yeah, he's been a fun dude to see. That's another like the UDFA.
There you go, rookies, baby.
Rookies, babies, all the baby bills, the baby bills. I think I should just title it that.
Oh no,
right? So they factor into all three of my top ones. And again, I consider doing just like a rookies one. I don't know which I'm going to, because you mentioned, I was like, oh, I'm kind of segue into one of the guys you mentioned, but you mentioned every person in my three. I'll start. I'll start with this one first. I'm interested to see the edges after the top three. So I think the top three is pretty set. Groot, AJ Epinesa, Von Miller, not necessarily in that order, but I think we know how the top three is going to function in the depth chart. I really like Smoot. I want to see how he plays. I thought he was going to be edge 4 for ever since he signed. You know, I've broken down his tape on the show and his advanced metrics, and I think he'd just be such a quality dude at edge 4 from a play style perspective and from a production perspective. But then after that, like, I want to see Casey Toohill. He's shown better as a pass rusher than I thought he would. But I still think he's really just a high motor guy, run defender. Javon Solomon, like, factors heavily into this conversation for me, and you talked about him as well. Like, he just being that archetype departure from a height and weight standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the Bean era, their edges are, you know, 6'4" and above, 270 pounds and above. And then here's Javon Solomon, who's not even 6'1", and he's 246 pounds, but he does have good arm length for his size, and he's got good hand size. He's not a pocket compressor. Like, he's a moves guy and a pass rush plan guy and a bend and athleticism dip kind of guy. And
this is so strange, but like, you saying all of this just makes me think about AJ Epenesa's weight loss.
So that goes me into another thing too. Like, and who did? Oh, I was doing the leading the charge. I was on with Fernando Schmood from Rumblings over the weekend, and we were talking about that, like how funny it is that like they're cool with Solomon doing that, but then they took AJ Epinesa and were like, "Hey man, yeah, we're gonna draft you. We need you to lose like 30 pounds and completely change your game and
like,
change your play style."
Was that foreshadowing? Like, did they always? And then like the years after, then you get Von Miller. Like, was this always truly just foreshadowing? Like, Sean McDermott
That's
never
super early though. Foreshadow. Well, it could be though.
Like, it takes 2 years for each to happen, pretty much. Right? Like, AJ Epinesa is drafted 2 years later, Von Miller, and then 2 years after Von Miller, Javon Solomon. Like, did they always want like a rotational pass rush specialist? You know, they want their archetype. That is the main guy that they want in the edge group, but then you want to sprinkle doing it again. You want to sprinkle in a couple of those.
That's twice.
You know what I mean though? Like,
Yeah.
I really do wonder if that was always the thought process, the philosophy behind like AJ Epenesa's weight loss. For whatever reason, they were like, yep, we like his technical ability. Now we're going to change him from a body makeup into the archetype that we wanted because no one else in this draft class fit it, or whatever their reasoning was. I'm just kind of making that back.
No, that could be. I've always found it interesting because he was like a big physical compression guy, which is what they want. And they were like, nope, we want you to be
like, to this day, we just don't have an answer on that.
No.
And you talking about this is like kind of, you know, backwards working it out for me in my head that might be why.
That could be. And Solomon definitely kind of, brings up that AJ transformation a little bit more and questions it a little bit more. And I'm just interested to see. His tape is really fun from a pass rush standpoint at Troy. Like, watching him, you know, do the ghost rush and feign a stab and dip and bend underneath, and his long arm at times, and how he can just win that half-man relationship and flatten and get to the quarterback. Kingsley Jonathan has flashed at times too. Like, I'm very, our boy going way back. I'm very interested to see how, again, I've always thought Smoot was going to be edge 4, and I thought that made a lot of sense and was a really good thing. But technically, edge 4 and beyond is all up for grabs. Like, it could be anyone's game. And we're not going to, regardless of what happens, I don't think we're going to see a ton of Groot in this game. I don't think we're going to see a ton of AJ Epinesa. I doubt we see Von Miller, which means
it's a lot of guys getting work.
This is good from Lauren. I love you. Now change. Straight out of the women's playbook. That's very good. I like that. Well done. I like that a lot. Lauren's crushing it. Lauren always crushes it.
She's on fire right now.
Yeah, she is crushing it. Yeah, this is like I feel like NBA Jam heat check. Like, he's on fire. We just hit anything from midcourt. Like, how does that edge 4 and beyond play out? Because in theory, it's all up for grabs. And anything can happen. And those are the guys we're going to see snaps. I think Smoot will see some reps in this game, but you're going to get a lot of Toohill. You're going to get a lot of Kingsley Jonathan. You're going to get a lot of Javon Solomon. Klein has gotten some work with the second team in camp and at the scrimmage. Like, he, I think, is kind of an outlier in this conversation in terms of what he can be. You know, does Cameron Klein kind of throw a wrench into the conversation? And he's the edge 4 or edge 5. Like, who gets pushed out? Because so much of it for me, I've said it a bunch, like, and you and I have talked about it through text, like, this edge grouping has a lot of depth, which is cool and good. But the top end pass rush productivity isn't there right now.
We don't know. Yeah,
correct,
we have no clue.
We don't know. you're hoping Groot takes a jump there, or AJ Epinesa takes a jump or maintains the efficiency numbers that he was at last year with more volume and sample size, or you're hoping Von Miller kind of regains some form, or you're hoping Javon Solomon is this hunter on known passing downs and situations and can get you like 8 sacks this year on limited snaps, or if it's Smoot, or if it's Kingsley, or if it's it's a lot of hope based. And so I'm looking to see who kind of separates themselves. Can somebody get to the quarterback? Because I really do love the idea of a top 4 of Groot, Epinesa, Vaughn, Smoot, and then your edge 5 is Javon Solomon, who doesn't have to bang against the run a ton and can just be this known passing down assassin and come off the and just come off the edge, put him out wide and let him hunt and cook. And I would like to see that in this game. Like, I'd like to see Javon Solomon come away with like 2 sacks and like 5 pressures and the ability to win off the edge. Or maybe maybe Kingsley Jonathan does it, or maybe it's Klein.
Whoever it is, you want to stand out because you're lacking a little bit of that comfort with the top end of the group. So you're hoping the depth shows itself against other depth in the preseason. And this is what the preseason is all about. Figuring out who has elite depth.
Yes. I don't think they have like an A or an A plus overall edge guy. Like, I think Groot is like an A plus as an edge defender versus the run, but he's more like kind of like a B to B plus at times. The pass rusher hasn't crept up to an A. And so if you're not going to have a true elite or A level dude as a pass rusher off the edge, that's fine. But then you need as many Bs and B pluses
and just keep the fresh legs going.
Exactly. So I'm very interested to see who can be that from edge 4 through edge 5. Because again, like if Epinesa, I like AJ Epinesa, but there's a legit chance that what we saw last year was like the best we're going to see. And if he can maintain that, cool. But maybe with more volume and more sample size, maybe he's not as efficient, as impressive. Or maybe Vaughn, these flashes we're seeing in camp, maybe they don't maintain or sustain throughout the entirety of the year, or once bullets are live and he's not that guy. Maybe Groot doesn't take that jump as a pass rusher. And even though his ceiling is so high, maybe we've seen it, so much of that unknown, and then how important and how much of a premium position edge is in the NFL, but especially for the Bills, and how much rotation matters in today's NFL and today's football, and also for the Bills. Like it's a spot that I'm really looking at.
Like, in the AFC, you better have good edges because, my God, you got to get after every team has a quarterback.
Everybody. You have, and now with the run game coming back, you have to defend the run and you have to defend the pass, which is also what worries me a little bit with Solomon because he is smaller. He plays like a velociraptor versus the run. Like, he is violent and aggressive and angry.
But it's not like traditional. Is it like still contained and disciplined, or is it like still just solid, very well-rounded and traditionally good against run defense? Like, is it kind of unconventional the way he wins?
No, it's good. Like, it's technically sound. Like, he stays flat. He stacks and tries to shed, or he will shoot and penetrate. Like, he
makes it work.
Get off.
Yeah, he makes it work despite
but the issue is, like, he makes it work less when he's facing dudes that have arm length and size, every single tackle does in the NFL. Like, every single tackle he's going to go up against is going to have him by minimum, like, 60 pounds at minimum, but probably way higher. You're looking at like 65 to like a 75, 80 pound difference. The size, height is going to be different. The arm length, like how much can he win first touch?
How much are guys starters are going to be playing? This is a good test for him. They got some like nice prototypical tackle size with Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright.
That's what I'm like. I want to see him go up against Darnell Wright, who I loved last year and who really came on as the season went along last year for Chicago. Yeah, like seeing how much kind of burn or run that he gets overall. And again, just rounding out kind of the edge grouping and kind of terms of what we're going to see. That's one for me.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I like that one a lot. Makes sense. I mean, I think the thing that really resonated with me was the top end bit, like just the unknowns of the top end and getting answers about who's going to stand out in the depth group for this position is it would be comforting.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. Like, I want to be able to have a warm blanket of edge play, knowing like, okay, you know what? Maybe I don't want to
like comfortable with the top end, but those top 3 alone doesn't make you feel like
because
even this team's going to be top 10.
Yes, because even with those top 3 and being comfortable with them, you're still hoping
Yeah.
for someone to take a jump.
Yeah.
Like whether it's Vaughn, whether it's Groot, whether it's AJ, there's each one of them have an if attached to them or some
Mhm.
semblance of hope attached to them. And I don't want to have to worry about that. I want some kind of known quantity. So I don't want to, even if I have to hope for the top 3, I can mitigate some of my trepidation around that by knowing
Yeah.
there's
Someone
more
in the
quality
rotation
down the
is
line.
gonna
Yes.
eat. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I
That's
like
kind of
that.
like my hope. So you need to have as many dudes that can eat. And if you can't beat them with quality, you got to beat them with quantity. And if you can rotate and cycle in and out 6 dudes or 5 dudes who are all B and a B to B plus or B to A minus, then you got a squad.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I like that one.
What do you got for your next one?
My next one is the secondary changes in particular. Like obviously we've talked a lot about just the roster turnover, but specifically honing in on like a group position group wise, it's the secondary between the safeties and Trey White leaving, I guess is the best way to put it. Yeah, I mean, obviously those guys were leaders, so it's not only what they brought on the field, it's also what they brought off the field. So not necessarily one for one changes like who's going to step up in the secondary room on that front, but the leadership front could just be, anyone who's going to replace them specifically. So that's just kind of like one piece of this puzzle, but then the other piece is obviously who one for one replaces them on the back end from a deployment perspective. And obviously, yeah, they all had their unique abilities. Like Poyer was so versatile. Like he joined Buffalo in 2017. He's the only player in the NFL with 20 interceptions and 30 tackles for loss in that span. So like he's
so ridiculous.
Like he's just so versatile. Like 2017 is a long time ago. Like to put up those type of stats and specifically interceptions with TFLs, like it really shows the versatility of how he was deployed and how he succeeded in Buffalo. So like he's such a unique player. And Hyde was just such a ball hawk. Like the way he had ball production was just insane. He had a 22% hawk rate since 2017 when the Bills got him, which is third highest in the NFL over that span with, the qualifier of actually getting targets thrown your way. So hawk rate is really just like it's a stat that shows ball production. How many times are you
figured
getting
you
an
were going to do it naturally.
interception or pass defense based on how many targets you're getting. So like, I mean, we knew he was a ball hawk, but like that's just kind of an easy stat to pull to be like, yeah, he gets his hand on the football a lot. Yeah. And then Trey White, the most interesting thing is that he had 3 interceptions and 4 passes defense since I believe it was 2021, and he only played 21 games in that 3-season span. Still had 3 interceptions and 14 pass defense. Like that's pretty much a season and change. Yeah. 21 games. Like he was getting injured and like coming back too early from all of these injuries and still like managing to cobble together great games as a broken soldier. Like he's going to be someone really missed in this secondary. My first Bills jersey in a long time was him. Like he was a stud straight out of LSU. You just know like the leadership and the on-field aspect that he is it's going to be missed. But then you look at the replacements and it's like there are some things to be excited about. Like Christian Benford has shown a lot of promise in the short span that he's had, even with his injuries and stuff. Absolutely. And then like Rasul Douglas was just a stud immediately after he was brought to Buffalo. So he was right before week 9 after the trade deadline. He had 6 takeaways, 4 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries since week 9, which is the most of any one player in the NFL over that span of time. Like it's just instant impact. He was plugged right in and he made an impact. So very interested to see like how that cornerback 1 is really going to shake. And then obviously the reports of Elam, like finding his confidence and how he shakes into this. Like Elam is a really obviously massive storyline. I mean, people who watch us with a lot of loyalty know how we feel about Kyer Elam. And like, that was kind of our heyday when Kyer Elam was drafted. Like, it's true. Like he's just a big storyline for the Bills and like how that draft pick in particular is going to pan out through the lifetime of that rookie contract. And he has 2 more years to really show he's worth reinvesting in. So this is a big preseason for him to establish where he belongs on this roster. Like, and we're like the rookies we've talked about, he's in a unique position, kind of similar to those rookies, where he's going to get a lot of opportunities
Mm-hmm.
to show it this preseason. And then obviously the safeties, like a lot of injuries right now, which is, an interesting dynamic with replacing the safeties. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's just a lot of names that you can go through and just kind of like, how are the veterans like Kareem Jackson going to fit in? Like, is
Yep.
Mike Edwards going to get healthy enough? DeMar Hamlin, like, what does he look like 2 years after? Stuff like that. Like, there's just a lot of turnover in the secondary room, and I'm interested to see it. Probably not on broadcast.
Yeah.
Probably on coach's film.
Me, the all-22. So this is my next point is the same. I just titled it the DBs. But then I also put like even in my notes are just stupid. I put DBs parentheses. Gonna have to wait for the all-22. I literally put that. Did you see that? I'm gonna show it right now. I really like this graphic that I hate. You got to add it to the stage. I did the same thing. So this is nice. This is from J Fort Gang at Throw the Damn Ball. He does stuff for PFF. This is 2023 cornerback separation prevention and catch point grade. So the catch point grade on the y-axis is a little, or the y-axis is a little subjective because it's like a PFF grade, but the bottom there is percentile of separation prevented. And look what you have. So Rasul Douglas is up here with the Packers logo because he started the year with the Packers. But look at what the Buffalo Bills have right here with Rasul Douglas, Taron Johnson, and Christian Benford in terms of separation being prevented, like as a unit. You don't have a lot of teams with their two outside corners and their nickel corner in that group. You've got the Jets with Sauce and Michael Carter here, and then DJ Reed is down here. So you've got those three here. You've got Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, and Jalen Watson here. But that's really it. Like Benford and Taron and Douglas were a really good grouping statistically and from an advanced metric standpoint last year, but also just what they do like schematically and what you're able to do in man and zone and the press ability that you have. And you can be up and press and jam. You can be up and press and bail. And then like the match coverage capability, so on and so forth. What Taron does against the run, what Benford and Douglas do against the run, and how important that is now because you have to be a legitimate run fitter and finisher as a DB, not just safeties in terms of being like a slot or apex and the outside corners. So I love them as the top three. What I want to see from the DBs in this game is pretty much everybody aside from them, like the safeties, and then everybody that's in theory behind them from a depth perspective. So start with Kaiir Elam, who you talked about. He's been looking really good in camp and in the scrimmage. You're starting to see cleaner feet. His eyes are leading him to the football. He had a nice interception of Allen in 7-on-7 on the scrimmage where it was cover two. They ran a smash concept to his side, and he read Allen and didn't nail down on the hitch, and he kept sinking.
Nice.
He sank underneath the corner, reached up, skied, picked it. He's had a couple really good plays in one-on-one, and even a lot of – this isn't even me like kind of trying to find a silver lining. A lot of the Keon Coleman highlights – that are being shown from camp on the Bills' Twitter are against Kaiir Elam. But the coverage is so good. It's either a perfect throw from Allen or an amazing catch from Keon Coleman. And the odds of those happening consistently, it is not high.
Well, it goes back to the statistical graphic that you just showed.
Yes.
Tight coverage at the catch point. Like, you bet on the guy that can do that consistently, and you just hope the offense isn't better than that great coverage.
Yes. And, Kair's got a couple times, but he's also gotten his share with PBUs and INTs and plays on the ball in camp, and he's looking really good. And I want to see if that continues. Again, for me, my starters are still Benford and Douglas. I still think Christian Benford gets not enough respect. Even like with Kaiir Elam succeeding now in camp, so many people are ready to be like, see, there he is.
Yeah, just put him on.
Put him ahead of Benford or put him ahead of Douglas. And I'm just not there yet. So I want to see what Kaiir Elam
you can
do.
never have enough. At the end of the day, they're probably all three of them are going to play significant time this year.
You can never have enough corner depth, to your point. It's a premium position. I literally just said it on the show I was just on previously. Kaiir Elam is going to start or play regular season reps at some point because somebody's going to get hurt. It's just the name of the game. And so seeing what Elam can do, but even then going after him, Jamarcus Ingram has shown well on the outside, but he's also somebody who can work in the slot. And he's a good run defender and blitzer and physical dude. So I want to see what Jamarcus Ingram does. A couple of the other guys in the slot competition, Daquan Hardy, who we talked about a little bit already, I've liked how he's shown out. I liked what I saw when I went back to the tape. Corey Couch is somebody who I like, UDFA out of Miami. He played under a die at Miami these past couple of seasons. So he's comfortable with that coverage scheme and system and what's asked of him, but he fits what the Bills like at slot. He's violent. He plays the run. He will get physical and jam anyone ahead of him. It doesn't matter if it's a little slot, jitterbug type of receiver, or if it's a tight end, he'll get attached. He'll get into the box. He'll tackle. He'll blitz. Good man coverage type of dude, physical kind of guy. I want to see how he plays. And then the safeties, how does this all shake out? Bishop is out. Mike Edwards is going to be out. Do we get to see Rapp and Hamlin? Because they've been all right, but they haven't looked great. There's been a lot of gaps in coverage so far in camp that I've seen a lot. And then even within that, after them, what do we get in this game? How much Kareem Jackson do we see?
Yeah.
How does he look? Is it D. Delaney and Kendall Williamson and Terrell Burgess? Like, what does the safety room look like? Because safety has so many questions versus years past. Like you mentioned, like for years, it's just been like hide and Poyer, rinse and repeat. Hide and Poyer, rinse and repeat. That's exactly it. Set it and forget it. And do you know what infomercial that's from?
I don't.
It's from, and I don't know if it's known from that, but I remember it was from this thing, Ronco. It was this guy who sold like microwave oven type things, but could cook like anything out of them. And so his thing with like the infomercial would be, he was in like one of those live studios and he'd put like a chicken in it. And he'd be like, and what do we do, folks? We set it. And then he'd turn and the crowd would be like, and forget it.
I know it from fantasy football. That's wild.
Nice. I think of that all the time. It was this infomercial that would be on like late at night. And I would just be watching it at like 1:30 in the morning, during summer vacation. Cause I was up.
Now I'm wondering if like Matthew Berry took that.
I would imagine cause that was like some 2000s. I don't think it was 90s. It was later than that. Like said it. And then the whole crowd would be like, and forget it. And then he would like take the chicken out and the chicken was like perfect.
That's electric though.
Yeah.
Probably literally electric.
I would say literally. Yeah, it was electric. Well done. So like there's just so many questions at the safety spot. And then I want to see who, because Edwards was banged up in the offseason. Now he's banged up now. How long is Bishop out for? There's a chance that the Bills need somebody to be safety 3 or be safety 4, like right now, or even going into week 1 or week 2. And even if they don't, can someone emerge that makes them think, you know what, we don't need Mike Edwards. Let's, Kendall Williamson's the guy. We're going to have him be that. Or Kareem Jackson's been really solid. We'll go with Kareem Jackson. Or we can keep, Bishop, on the mend and let him take as much time because we're confident in these other 2 guys. Or maybe somebody supplants DeMar Hamlin. I don't know. Like there's just opportunity at that safety spot. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the DB room in general.
Right.
Or Kaiir Elam kind of staking his claim as next up and saying, you know what, Rasul Douglas can be a UFA next year. You don't need to bring him back. It can be me and Christian Benford.
Yeah, so him doing well doesn't have to mean a lot for 2024.
Exactly.
It can be about being a contributor and then what it means for 2025.
All that it can mean, and this is really nice, is, hey, I'm a solid CB3. I'm ready to go right now if you need me, but you don't.
Yeah, whenever.
So I'm in the stable and I'm ready to run next year when Douglas is a UFA and you don't need him anymore. Cool. But there's opportunity for him to be a little bit more, to shine a little bit. There's opportunity for Hardy. There's opportunity for Corey Couch. I always think, Cam Lewis is a dude who always comes to mind, jack of all trades. Like, how much run does he get at safety? And especially if Hardy or Corey Couch can emerge as the nickel backup to Taron Johnson, do they feel more comfortable putting Cam Lewis as more like full-time safety and have him be safety 3 or safety 4? Like, how does that change the math with who they keep and how? And then, Jamarcus Ingram being able to play inside and outside. Hardy showing a little bit inside, outside, like we talked about. I feel like there's, after your starters of Taron on the inside and then Benford and Douglas on the outside, I really think everything else for the corners is up for grabs to a degree, even though Elam is kind of penciled in at the 3, but he's got an opportunity like we talked about. And then the safeties, I think, have a lot of movement and shaking to do as well. So I really think my eyes are just glued to the DBs, and it's something that, I'm going to have to wait for the all 22 on Sunday morning to go and comb through. But it's even something we can see, like if
Yeah,
I don't
if
know.
there's a play on the football, like you at least get to know, hey, he had good
Yeah.
enough coverage to be in position to make that
Like,
play on the
or I'm
football.
thinking back to Kyer's rookie year when the Bills played the Steelers. And I remember you and I were talking about it like after the game happened. Like the Steelers just kept going after Elam. Going after
Oh
Elam. That
yeah.
first half, it was like 5 straight completions because he was
Mhm.
so far off in
Yeah.
bail, and they just kept going at him. Guys were getting into his blind spot, and they just kept attacking him,
Yeah, it
attacking
was
him. Like,
obvious on broadcast. You're
yes.
like, yeah, this
So
is
do we
the
see something
problem.
like that? Are we seeing one of the safeties flying down and making really good run fits or tackles or blitzing or plays on the ball? Like, what can we glean from that? And again,
Yeah.
obviously the all
Yeah.
22 will tell a
Yeah,
lot, but
then
I
you
think
get the next layer.
but I think there's a lot of moving and shaking to be done with the DB room as a whole. Like after the top 3, like I think remove Benford, Douglas, and Taryn, their backups and their backups. And I think the safety grouping as a whole has a lot of moving and shaking to do.
For
And I think
sure.
every preseason game is going to matter a lot for that.
For sure. No, I can't agree more with that. Obviously, it was one of my 3.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Oh, I like this from Nikki. You said rotisserie chicken commercial. I remember those. There'd be like 30 of them all cooking chicken. Yeah, everybody's trying to find the best way
Yeah,
to like
because all
cook.
you have to do is set it and forget it.
That's right. And bro, you got go after this. It was literally Ronco,
No, I'm gonna have to.
Ronco, and he was just doing a button-down shirt and a Ronco apron, and he'd have some
Oh,
lady up there
man.
with him, and he'd be cooking chicken. I also like this from Lauren saying that Taryn is stepping into a leadership role this year. I think him, Bernard, and Milano were like the leaders of that defense from blending the front and the back.
Yeah.
And then Douglas is a voice and matters a lot. Taylor Rapp communicates a lot and is a voice. But yeah, I think Taryn's going to be a huge piece. Oh, question from Ron. Ron says, Ant, who do you think will be the 5th and 6th corners this year? Is Cam the 5th? Who's the 6th? Kendall, this is, kind of some of what we talked about a little bit. I'm torn right now. Like, I think, if we're looking at the top 3, so Benford, Douglas, Taryn, I think Elam is 1. I think Jamarcus Ingram is 5th. I think Cam Lewis factors in there. And then I think like Daquan Hardy or Takori Couch has an opportunity. But
Yeah.
again, depending on what happens with the safeties, maybe Cam is a safety and they keep another corner, and maybe they keep Couch and Hardy, or, Ken I Lovely or something like that. Like, I think there's a lot of moving and shaking to happen.
Yeah, I gotta imagine. Like, I think a lot of this really rides on Daquan Hardy, to be honest, because it seems like there's only 2 spots up for grabs, and you'd like to keep your draft pick. Like the Bills, I should really double check this, but they've lost a DB to waivers, like a late round DB to waivers.
Yeah, I would say I remember Nick McLeod a couple of years ago.
And then
He got grabbed by
Wild
Cincinnati.
Goose.
Yes, who started for Washington down the
Which
stretch.
doesn't say much, though. Washington has been a notoriously bad secondary.
Oh, man.
But
sorry, we're going down you got to watch all these infomercials. Lauren came through and said the Mexican cornballer over the Ronco
is that
rotisserie.
not a spoof on Arrested Development?
No. Arrested Development's thing is because of the real Mexican cornballer. Yeah. Good call. Oh, just the tip you can do says I remember the ShamWow commercials. Yep, I remember that.
That's my era. I'm all over that.
Yeah, ShamWow was a bit. ShamWow and Billy Mays doing all the
What about the slap chop?
Oh, I remember the slap chop. The slap chop. Billy Mays was a big one. All the OxyClean stuff, and then the flex. I think he started to do flex spray too before he passed away, where like he was spraying all the stuff on a boat and then
stuff.
Yeah, man, Flex Seal. Yeah, man, we should just do an episode on that, breaking down film.
Yeah,
old
infomercials.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, I think DB is a big one. Obviously, what did you? I know you were looking up stuff for the DBs. Where are you going to finish your thought with?
I was trying to find their drafts and see how many late round DBs have been snagged off their waivers.
Wild Goose, McLeod.
They don't have Alex Austin anymore.
Good one. He got snagged by the Pats and actually he actually played well.
He did, and then they kept Benford the year before, lost Wild Goose the year before that, kept Dane Jackson. I'm missing one.
Wild Goose. No safeties.
No safeties. Might have been a UDFA CB that we were thinking of.
I think those are the ones.
Yeah, it was McLeod. That's why.
Yeah,
he was
UDFA.
Yeah.
He got grabbed by, and then I think he got grabbed by the Bengals, but then also I think
the Giants too.
Yeah, because he went to the Bengals, then they released him. The Bills brought him back, and the Giants took him again. I think because there was 2 times that happened.
Joe Shane.
Yeah. That connection never die.
It won't.
Anything else on DBs, or do you want to go to your third point?
Nah, I will go to my third point. I feel like we've
I like it.
exhausted DBs. It's a good one though. I'm definitely excited for the all 22.
Same.
Next one is kind of tied to Terrell Bernard in a way. But it's about Dorian Williams, and it's about year 2 for
That's my 3.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Dorian Williams, year 2 for a third round linebacker, because
Yeah.
we saw the ascension of Terrell Bernard last year, and I know you've notified me that apparently he's crowned as, the next all pro linebacker.
Man, people are mad at his Madden rating. At the
Wait, what's his Madden
disrespect,
rating?
like a 74.
Oh, that's pretty
It's
criminal.
wildly bad.
He
And
should
his
probably be like high 70s ish, like probably 79.
Here's what it is. He's a 74, and I think Tyrell Dodson's a 79.
Yeah, that's a little nuts.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's a little nuts.
It's wild. But people are really high on him for, again, he had a good year, but
no, he was great. Like,
he was tremendous.
Let's not, but like, we'll put it in really easy terms for all you Madden players. He's not an 85. Like, he's just not an 85 yet. Like, he has to do more. It's not to say that he isn't. It's to say, from an outside perspective, he owes more to the football community in terms of body of work to prove that he's worth an 85.
Yeah.
He very well could be a 95, but he needs to prove it with a body of work.
Especially with, like, you've got some really, really good off-ball linebackers in football. Like, Fred Warner is a monster. Roquan Smith is a monster. Matt Milano, is a like, you've got some, and I think he's trending towards being in a really good conversation point. But I think a lot of people are putting him in the Roquan conversation already. And I just don't think like it's there. And then you have things like Madden that kind of make it worse. And so the
74 is bad. I will definitely say that 74 is
it's
bad.
horrible, but it just makes people fight for him more. Yeah. So the people who were already high on him are now more high on him because they feel offended and like he's being attacked. Yeah. So it's just this
ride or die, baby.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And they want everyone to, Lauren comes in and says, whispers, I like the disrespect. Let it feel him. I like that. Yeah. It's kind of, I feel like anytime someone gets disrespected, Sean McDermott is like the Kermit with the hood. Yeah, no, I think it's the opposite. It's him with like the Kermit with the hood, like looking and just being like good, or like Palpatine in Star Wars, just being like good, like he's just happy, like he wants it.
That's funny.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know how we got on that Terrell Bernard tangent.
Oh no, because
Dorian Williams,
his jump in year 2,
and I'm
think about that last year at this time. Last year at this time, real quick, like everybody was like, who's going to start at linebacker? Is it Dodson or is it Bernard? And a lot of people were like, doesn't matter. Either way, it sucks.
Yeah. So very, for this year, relative to Dorian Williams, spinning it forward, it's definitely not the same question because now it's about like just filling out the depth.
Yes.
And I think last year we saw how scary bad depth at a position can be. At corner and linebacker. Like it can get scary.
Bro.
So I'm very curious what kind of next step Dorian Williams takes. And then on top of that, just like holistically, the depth at linebacker. Like we lost Terrell Dodson, like he was a good depth linebacker. And yeah, I'm just curious what it's going to look like behind him with drafting Ulofoshio and picking up Nicholas Morrow, who I know Eagles fans did not like, and then getting Deion Jones, who was an absolute stud early in his career, and now he's just kind of trying to get on the redemption arc. So it's an interesting group that does need some established depth, and I think we all felt that as a fan base, like you need that depth at the linebacker position because this defense relies heavily on its linebackers, and if you don't have one that can perform all the tasks, teams will exploit the structure of this defense.
I think
the spine just has to be strong.
Yes, and I'm with you with the idea of kind of the importance of depth at the linebacker spot because of again pulling off AJ Klein from the cruise or wherever he was going on a vacation with his family. And next thing you know, he's there like starting a playoff game. Dorian Williams has been the linebacker 3 with Bernard and Milano when they've gone heavier versus like bigger sets thus far in camp. So he's been that guy. He was also with the ones with Bernard during the scrimmage because Milano didn't play in the scrimmage. And he looked good. He looked much better than he was last year. The specific verbiage I used when I was talking about the scrimmage was his eyes are starting to catch up to his feet. Like his
Love
processing and
that.
mental ability, is starting to catch up to
His
his
feet
physical
were
ability.
always there. Like this guy, like I don't want to say he reads and reacts like the best of them, but boy does he react with the best of them. Like
Yeah.
his reactive athleticism is very evident on film. Like he really twitches to the ball carrier and goes like full fire towards them.
Yes.
He is a very athletic, functionally athletic player, and yeah, picking up the processing to read and react will be huge for him. That's awesome that he's getting that next step.
Yes. And sometimes people would use that against him
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of manipulate him and take advantage of that free flowing, but like lack of processing piece and stuff.
Yeah.
But he's looked good, and he's going to get a ton of burn. Like Milano's not going to play a ton. Maybe Bernard plays like a snap or two, but I feel like, or a snap or two, series or two. But I feel like you're going to see a lot of Dorian Williams and Spector and Deion Jones and Morrow and Ulofoshio and those kind of guys. But I like what Dorian has done, and I do think it's important to have a solid linebacker 3
Yeah.
that hopefully can kind of match the athleticism of Bernard and Milano. And that's what
Yeah.
Dorian Williams is. Like if Dorian Williams can be the prince that was promised, you have, I got to stop because we got super chat.
Ooh.
Appreciate you being here. Like a boss. Good name. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the super chat. Like a boss says, hot take. If we can't get past the Chiefs in the playoffs, is this McDermott's last season? Also, what wide receivers make this team? Oh, so we got 2-part question. Kendall, let's start with this first part. If the Bills can't get past the Chiefs in the playoffs, do you think this is Sean McDermott's last season?
I think it depends on if the Chiefs then win the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. Because if they win the Super Bowl, the impact is less because you lost.
Yeah, like what are you to do? Like, what are you to do about this? Like, sorry that you decided to get your head coaching career started when Patrick Mahomes entered the league. Like, like you can't do much about that. Like, at a certain point, you just have to accept what it is and hope you get lucky and you beat them 2 out of the 8. Like the Bills are great against the Chiefs in the regular season. It's just not good in the playoffs. Like it's not like the Bills can't beat the Chiefs. I don't think it's about if they lose to the Chiefs. I think it's about how they lose and what are the circumstances more than it being that binary.
It's so tough because, and I don't necessarily think there's like a right answer, but the whole idea of like, when do you cut bait with a coach that like can't win the big one? Because like there's something to be said for a guy who always has you in the dance.
Yeah.
But the goal isn't to get to the dance. The goal is to like win the dance. So like when do you, like, I mean, ironically, it's very similar to the Andy Reid conversation in Philly. Like fans were dancing out of celebration when Andy Reid got fired. Like the Eagles literally waited for him to have one down year and then clipped him. And then even with Kansas City, his first several years, they were into the playoffs, losing every year. Chiefs fans wanted him out. They were like, all we got is bum Andy Reid, who can't win the big one, yada, yada. And all of a sudden, Mahomes and Kelsey and Spags comes over.
Quick the narrative can flip.
Yes, the narrative can flip in an instant. I'm always torn. I don't think, but,
look,
just
the
answer
the fact that the narrative can flip that quickly is why I want the guy that can get you to the dance, because you can't win the dance without getting to the dance.
Yes, that's the whole conversation point, right? So I'm always torn on that like conversation piece for people, and while understanding of it. But for me, no, I don't think it's McDermott's last season if he can't get past the Chiefs. Also, it depends on like where it happens, right? Like if they go to the AFC Championship and lose to the Chiefs, I'm probably not getting rid of Sean McDermott. Like it would take a lot for me to get rid of Sean McDermott because I think he's a good coach and I think he consistently has you in good places. Again, and I'm not trying to find the silver lining or be that guy, but like, look at that game last year with what they had on defense. No Benford, Rasul Douglas on one leg. Who they had at linebacker? Daquan was playing, but he wasn't healthy.
And they played a competitive football game. Like,
right? And they lost
by 3. They made
it
work. Like, they were inefficient on defense. Like the Chiefs were like 7-8 yards per play or something like that.
It was wild. They really just turned it on at some point.
They were really efficient that whole game. But the Bills are still competitive in the game. Like the Bills found a way to stay within one score and keep it
Who
very
knows?
competitive.
Who knows what happens if Allen completes that second down throw to Shakir with like 3 minutes left and it's a touchdown? Or who knows what happens if Tyler Bass makes the field goal? Maybe like the Bills get the stop, or Mahomes fumbles the snap and turns it over. Like, you never know what the hell can happen. And the narrative is completely different then. Then you got to go to Baltimore and beat Baltimore, which is another task in and of itself. But yeah, I don't think there's so much context that has to happen for him to get bounced. But yeah, I don't think if they don't get past the Chiefs, I don't think it's his last season. What do you think about this one? I'll go first since you went first.
Yeah,
for the
go for
first
it.
half.
Yeah.
What wide receivers make this team? I'm going right now. And again, it's early. I'm going with, and not necessarily in order, I'm going with Hollins, Keon, Samuel, Shakir, MVS, and I'm going to say KJ Hamler.
So,
but I think there's a chance that only 5 could make it. I think they could maybe go with 5, but I'm going to say 6, and I'm going to say Hamler's the 6th.
Yeah, I always kind of assume it's going to be 6 that's kept. I'm good with locking in your top 4. The way everyone's talking about Mac Hollins, it feels like that's a lock. So,
well, he fits that Gabe Davis role as a blocker, but that role has even more value if they go with condensed formations and reduce 100%. The formation width. He becomes a legitimate factor.
On top of that, just like the person he is, like the galvanizing, type of character he is in the locker room, like it just sounds like he's vibing very well with everyone. So it seems like he's a lock. But yeah, I'd go Keon, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins. Yeah, the 4th or the 5th and 6th, dude, that's tough. There's a lot of guys. How have Chase Claypool and Andy Isabella been?
Claypool's been hurt.
Right.
And has missed a bunch. Isabella's kind of been a non-factor, and then he got banged up a couple days ago, so nothing really notable from either of them. It would be between like 4 through 6. No, I'm sorry, 5 and 6 right now to me is between MVS, Hamler, and Shavers, with MVS and Shavers probably having the lead track right now. But I just think after preseason and the speed, I just feel like with how the rest of that group looks on paper, KJ Hamler's speed.
Yeah, it rounds out the group.
Yeah,
it rounds out the group well. You don't want to have too many redundancies.
Also gives you some returning ability too, like depending. And maybe Hardy gets banged up. You got Hamler in the back pocket, and it's been Hamler. It's been Hamler, Hardy, and I forget who the third has been.
Ray Davis, no.
Early on, but not when they started going. When they cut it down to like 3, I don't remember who the third was. It Isabella? I don't remember. But Hamler and Hardy have been the main 2.
I feel like with the new kickoff rules, you want a running back as your returner.
I agree with that notion.
I don't know. We'll see how it actually plays out. Yeah. No one really knows how it's going to play out. Justin Shorter. What's going on there?
Uneventful, and then I think he's hurt right now.
Tough.
But he Tyrell Shavers is.
Yeah, he's kind of supplanted him as
Shorter's an afterthought.
The plan
right
was.
Now. Yeah,
dude, that sucks. That's annoying.
Sucks for those truthers.
I just wasn't thrilled with that pick, and I was just hoping to be wrong. Sometimes I just really want to be wrong.
Yeah, I would like that.
But yeah, I honestly couldn't give you a 5 and a 6. I haven't seen as much camp. Like, I need this game. This game is what's going to tell me who's 5 and 6.
This game.
Like, no, seriously, like this is the whole point of preseason. Like, I couldn't tell you, like, it kind of means nothing at this point. We haven't played a preseason game, but based on this point, I think the locks were what we said, those top 4 guys between Mac Hollins, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and Khalil Shakir. I think those are the 4 locks, and we got to figure out the rest. If a 6th guy even deserves to make the roster. That 6th wide receiver might not be competing with a wide receiver.
True. I came into this, into camp, thinking the top 5 were locks. And I know MVS hasn't been great, but I also feel like he's been better than people have given him credit for. And again, it's going to be wide receiver 5. So I'm
his
just
contract is peanuts anyways.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of just sticking with that. And I don't know if anybody's shown enough, granted, you can say but it's wide receiver 5, yada, yada, who cares? And Tyrell Shavers can play teams. MVS doesn't really play teams, yada, yada. But,
that's what Hollins is for.
Yeah, I mean, It's a fun comp, but that's also another position grouping to keep an eye on too. Like
It
at wide
is.
receiver, like does Tyrell Shavers come out of this game with like 9 catches for 110 yards, and then everybody's like, oh, there's your wide receiver 5. Like, does Hamler set the world on fire? Does MBS look legit? Like, who kind of steps up from wide receiver? That's another one to kind of talk about as well. Lauren asked, do you think Davidson is tight end 3 or is it still Morris? I really like Zach Davidson. I still think Morris is tight end 3. Especially with what he offers as a blocker and just the known quantity that he is. But that's another fun one. I'm interested to see how tight end shakes out with Davidson and Morris. That's a good one. And yeah, Ron says Davidson is having a good camp. He absolutely is. Oh, it took me an hour and 19 minutes to flub my first word. I'm kind of proud of myself.
I mean, that's pretty good.
Looking
at the contracts now, actually, Valdez Scantling seems like more of a lock. He got a lot.
Yeah, and also they like gave him void years for like 4 years, like the next 4 years, I think each year with like 250 million or 250,000, I think each year.
It's
for the
next 225, like for the next 4 years after this. So,
yeah, it's such a weird thing to do for a 1 year deal.
Kind of feels like he might just be on the roster already.
Yeah, that's my kind of thought a little
or
bit.
At least Pagula is going to be like, hey, this is my money. Like,
especially with how Brady spoke about him, and not that necessarily means anything, but yeah, I kind of think he's more of a lock than he's getting credit for. I think it would have to be a combination of he just bottoms out and other multiple other dudes have to ball out.
Yeah,
like it's got to be a bit.
If it's close, like he's getting the tiebreaker.
Absolutely.
Because Pagula Bucks.
But yeah, that's a spot to watch because Pagula Bucks. Yeah, that's a position to watch. And yeah, I kind of going back to, I don't know how we even got here. Oh no, because the question that was asked. Yeah, I just want to see how Dorian continues on his trajectory, and similar to the corner conversation, I just don't think Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano are going to play all your snaps for you. Like somebody's going to get banged up for a half or a game or a couple. Like it's just bound to happen. Yeah. So I would like to know that
it's better to think that way than to be naive.
Absolutely. Like, and I'm a big fan of contingency plans and having those. Yeah. And it would be nice if Dorian Williams was that contingency plan at linebacker. I'm okay if it's Nicholas Morrow or if it's Deion Jones or, if it's Spector, although I don't think it really would be. I'm okay going with a known quantity vet. And Jones has looked good at times in camp. And, Morrow, I think, has a good track record for what he did last year. Again, for a depth guy and a vet. But ideally it's Dorian, considering the cost effectiveness and the contract and the term that you have for the next several years. And just, again, his athletic profile and how it plays in this defense and what he allows you to do. So I'm interested to watch him because I think his ascension is more important than it's getting credit for, but also because I think he's going to play a F ton of snaps because Milano's not playing and Bernard will play a little bit, but probably not a ton. So Dorian's going to get burned. This last one for me was kind of just individual players I'm watching. So Dorian was there. Ray Davis, who you talked about earlier, is a big one for me. Just, again, kind of similar to Dorian. I think he's going to get a ton of burn because Cook's not going to see a ton of time. Ty Johnson probably won't see a ton of time. I think this is going to be a heavy Ray Davis, Baby Gore kind of game. And Darrington Evans, which is a nice speed dynamic, which is fun. So I think they'll get a lot of the snaps, but Davis will get a bunch. I loved his tape at Kentucky. I think he's shown very well in camp and in the scrimmage. I know he's had the fumbles, which have not been ideal, but the vision, the clean feet, the receiving ability coming out of the backfield. He's running seams. He's running rail routes. He's running option routes. He's winning in individual. He's winning in team. Seeing what he's done has been a real treat, and I know he's going to get a lot of run. And I think he's somebody who could have a bigger impact with the starting unit this year than was initially thought for people when he was drafted, especially because, again, I expect the run game to matter a lot for this offense, and his skill set pairing with that ability to be condensed or spread at any given moment and do any given thing and be a little more of a hammer than James Cook pairs well with James Cook and the identity of the offense going forward. He's one that I really have my eye on, again, because I think he's going to get the volume, and I think he's a little more important than he gets credit for. And then we 100%. Talked about it a bit already. But that receiver position, I just want to see how it kind of shakes out. How much do we see from kind of the top end guys at the depth chart? How much Keon Coleman do we see? How much Mac Hollins do we see? How much MVS do we see? How much Shakir? And then those other guys, does Shavers ball out? Does Hamler ball out? What do we get from everybody else who's trying to kind of make or stake their claim to making this team and getting a roster spot? Yeah, I'm very interested to see kind of how that shakes out there. And we talked about it a bit, but yeah, I really, from an individual perspective, I really want to see Dorian. I really want to see Ray Davis. And again, a lot of this too goes back to the thing we talked about in the beginning, right? It's you're looking for positions and players that you think matter for this season or the
Yeah.
future, but also knowing who it is that we think will get a lot of the snaps. And I think Davis and Dorian Williams are both
Yeah.
dudes that are going to see a ton of burn in this game.
Yeah, I love that. The running backs that's entertaining. Between Ray Davis, Frank Gore Jr., and Darrington Evans, that'll be not a boring thing every time the
Mm-hmm.
Bills get on offense. Like there's
Right.
something because there's usually a lot of running of the football in the preseason. So
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
exciting that those are the three guys that are going to be
And
doing
even
the
if there's
football.
not, cool, like, how is Ray Davis holding up in pass pro?
Yeah,
Like, because, like, how is
yeah,
Baby Gore handling that? Like, what do we see from the spread game? Or, like, oh, do we get any running back screens? Or, like,
yeah.
Brady's, design stuff for running backs? How much of that do we see here? And, like, how good is Davis looking there? Or who else? Like, there's those little inklings to what we'll
Yeah.
see come regular season time, too, I think factors into the running backs.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that. There's so many. I had like a whole bunch of like I listed like 10 in my notes and then like whittled
Of
it down
course
to
you
like the
did.
3 1 1. It's so hard. I don't know why I do these
Well,
episodes
because it's
where I'm always
before
like,
week 1 of the preseason, there's everything's on the table at this point.
that's true.
Like there's zero answers other than what you've seen at training camp, but it kind of means nothing because I mean, let's be honest. As much as it's part of the body of work, like the game reps are that's where the most weight is going for the evaluators.
Yeah. And I think with a Bears team that had their first game be the Hall of Fame game, didn't really
Yeah.
play the quote unquote starters. Now you're looking to get more Caleb, more Odunze, more, of kind of their starting line, maybe some of their starting defenders. How much do we see and how much can they work against, the Briskers of the world and Kyler Gordon and,
Mhm.
Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson. I don't know how much like they'll play in that, but you'll probably get a couple series. And then, yeah, you're really leaning into like, okay, these third team dudes who are trying to make it to the second team, the guys who are on the bubble trying to make it to the third team to get to the second team, and then the second team dudes that could potentially pop into the first team and have that
Yep.
impact. And yeah, I think this is again, we talk about it like I think we're going to geek out for the preseason no matter what and find ways to get excited. But I really do think this one has legitimate, like even if you're just a casual Bills fan, I think you should watch the entirety of this game.
Yeah.
Like the fourth quarter will still matter for this
The
roster.
roster,
Yeah.
yeah, they you might feel the players that are playing this preseason later into games in this preseason than you have in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And I think even again, going to like guys you're still going to see in the second quarter of this first game, I think will matter in 2024.
Yeah,
And
it's a
so
great
like
point.
and it just I think it again it makes it feel a little. I like Laura's comment here. She says I can't wait for this weekend. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's
Well, this is a
exciting.
good
I
question
didn't
from Ron.
realize it was this weekend until, like, literally 2 days ago. I was like, "Oh my god, the Bills are
I've been
playing football."
horrible. I didn't realize I knew it was the week after the Hall of Fame game, but I didn't realize the Hall of Fame game was last Thursday until it was like Thursday at like 5:30, and one of my boys texted me and was like, "Yo, I think it sucks that Caleb's not playing tonight." And I was like,
Huh?
"Caleb who?" And he was like, "Caleb Williams for the Bears." And I was like, "Oh, the Hall of Fame game." And he was like, "Yeah, like you dumb." And I was like, "All right, you're mean." But
That's
yeah,
rude.
I forgot. Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, that's rude. Why are we friends?" But yeah, that popped me. And then I realized from there. I like this comment for the question from Ron. Ron saying, "Who's the green dot when Bernard
It's
isn't
a
in there?"
great
I would
question.
think it's Milano.
Is he asking? You should ask him to clarify. Is he saying, like, when the starters aren't out there or only Bernard?
Oh, that's a
Because
good question.
right? Because it would be Milano
I read this question as like, say Bernard is
specifically,
out of the
yeah.
game, and it's like Milano and Dorian are your two linebackers. Yeah, who has the green dot?
Yeah,
I would
it
think
would
it's Milano.
definitely be Milano, but, yeah, like, if the first like, in the preseason when we see 2 linebackers that aren't Bernard or Milano, like, who's gonna
Ooh,
be
like if say it's Dorian and Spector.
right.
Ooh, good question. Like I know. Oh, so Ron's clarifying. He's going. You're right when the starters aren't in there. Ooh, I would think Morrow would have a dot. Jones would have a dot.
I would definitely think Jones has a dot.
Maybe Spector over Dorian. It depends on how
I
Dorian has progressed with his mental stuff. I would think Spector because he's been in the system more.
I also think it's Spectre of, like, the people who were probably projecting to be the second stringers.
Yeah. And the second
Yeah.
string linebackers have been Spector and Dorian.
Yeah,
I would think it's Spectre.
It's probably Spectre.
And just based off of what I recall in camp, I think Spectre has been leading the huddle. I
There
would
you
think
go.
it's Spectre.
There's your
Yeah.
answer, folks.
Good old
Insider Anthony Prohaska.
That's me. Good old Babylon Spectre. I like that. What else? Anything else? Any thoughts, philosophies, maxims? Anything you got?
Definitely nothing. Honestly, I haven't said. I feel like we've covered the gambit on this one. Like, there's so much going on with this roster turnover. I mean, the high level just things with Joe Brady. It's exciting to kind of see the first inklings of that, and then down to just all the player turnover on this roster. We really went through it from just about all the positions other than like nitty gritty on the offensive line and nitty gritty on the defensive line. Like there's battles all over this roster. And yeah, I think the main takeaway, I think the theme for this entire show is what you said is, yeah, the guys that are going to be playing in the second half of these preseason games might actually matter in the regular season this year. So
Which is
stay
wild.
tuned. Like,
Yeah,
I'd
right?
keep watching this preseason because, yeah, it does feel like these players are going to matter to this football team quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of good, like, pay attention to this guy because next season and the season, like season after, yada, yada, future type stuff. But even, just for this year, like there's a legit shot that Daquan Hardy is like your backup nickel to Taron Johnson,
Yeah,
or,
we just
again,
don't know.
Yeah. Or one of these safeties ends up playing a little bit more. And yeah, I'm excited for this game. I mean, again, it's football, so I'm gonna be excited kind of regardless. But yeah, I feel like there is more moving and shaking to be done. Yeah. I think there's more moving and shaking to be done in this year than previous years. Going to throw up some love for the sponsor right now, which I do at different points in episodes, depending on how things are kind of flowing to give everybody different feels for things. One Pie Pizza, I mentioned them in the intro. The best pizza in Buffalo, New York. And I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they are the best pizza. Sweet sauce, cup-of-char pepperoni, great cheese to sauce ratio. They make their own blue cheese. They also do like catering and other foods. Like I talked about, I had them cater a party that my wife and I did, and we got a bunch of their mac and cheeses. Like their regular one was good, but then they also did like a pulled pork mac and cheese and like a buffalo chicken mac and cheese. Yeah, it slapped. It was wild good. They do sandwiches and a whole bunch of stuff. They really do good stuff over there at One Pie. Again, online menu can be found in the episode show notes here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. They also do a lot for the community every year. Alzheimer's Foundation, partnering with Roswell, Toys for Tots, the SPCA. They're really good people making really good food. So go get yourself some One Pie pizza, especially now if like you're coming into Buffalo for for like Bills games, preseason, regular season, whatever. Stop by One Pie Pizza, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. What are the comments? Lauren says, are those toddler railings on the bed, Kendall? What's happening there? I like that.
So this is the office. This is the office space, and it's also a guest room.
That's what I figured.
Which means that this is a day bed. So it's being used as a day bed until a guest actually comes to visit us, and then it turns into an actual bed.
That was my thought. I like that.
Yeah.
I also like that printer over there, what I think is in the back. That printer, is that a printer?
Oh, it's a printer.
That printer looks legit. Like that printer looks like it's
cooks.
a transformer. Yeah, bro. That looks like it transforms into like Optimus Prime.
Yeah, it knows what it's doing over there.
I'm a fan of like good quality home electronics, and as a person who like works from home a bunch, and my wife.
I mean, I don't use it. Like, my girlfriend, she uses it all the time, but that's why we have it. I mean, it cooks.
I like it. It looks like a microwave, so I imagine it cooks. Yeah, I peeped it as soon as I saw. I joined late, and we were kind of getting our bearings. But the first thing I noticed, I was like, "Yo, that printer is sick!" Like. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I like it a lot. Funny. I like it a lot. So yeah, go check out One Pie, DM Kendall and see where you got that printer so you both can get your printer. Mm-hmm. Kendall, any parting words for anyone? As I throw up the banner here that says Toodles, folks, as we start to wind down and say our goodbyes. Any parting words, thoughts for this game, for this season, for a player, anything and everything that is on your mind? And if you don't have anything, feel free to say I don't have anything, but whatever you got.
Yeah, nothing in particular, man. I'm just really excited to kick off this preseason. Didn't realize football was as around the corner as it is.
It's close.
Super excited that it's on NFL Network. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to watch it, which is very exciting that the Bills are actually good enough to do that now.
Right.
All of you other out-of-towners, watch NFL Network to watch the game. Yeah, really excited for the season to start, man. And honestly, thankful that you brought me back on here, and hopefully we can keep kind of having these little touch points with the Bills as we go through the season, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are, I think the schedule aligns a little bit better for us now and set
Yeah.
up and everything. So yeah, I'm hoping this will be the first of many for this season. I feel like I've also so many like times I've been like, hey man, you available? Like, no. And you were like, no, I can't. I'm like, all right, cool. So when you said you were good for this one, I was like, oh yeah, let's get back into that rhythm.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just worked. Yep.
I appreciate you joining me. You crushed it as always. Appreciate everybody in the live chat, your questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, the back and forth with each other, the back and forth with myself and Kendall, and the engagement. Like, it's one of the best aspects of being able to do this show and being able to do this live and seeing everybody tune in. And again, just the engagement and the activity. It's not just people here and just sitting. It's the actual thoughtfulness that you folks put into
Hmm.
comments, responses, questions, everything like that. Thank you very much to Like a Boss for the super chat.
Hmm.
Greatly appreciated as well. If you did not watch live and you watched post live, that's cool as well. Thank you very much for your post live view. Regardless, if you're still here now or watching later, please, 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 and thank you. Drop a like on this video if you have not already. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams here on YouTube. So please, 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 and thank you. Drop a like on this video here on YouTube, whether you're watching live now before you go, or if you're watching post live later. If you are listening to this show on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's appreciated as well. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage on whatever app or platform podcasting piece you are listening to this show on. If you're here on YouTube, turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist. Subscribe to the Cover One channel. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is. If you thought this show was terrible, tell your enemies and try and make them watch the show in order to ruin their day and make bad things happen to them. Again, thank you very much to everyone in the chat. Thank you, live viewers, post live viewers, listeners, downloaders, whatever you folks got. Greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for all the kind words and thoughts that have come in for myself and Kendall throughout the entirety of the show and that are coming in now. I don't like to bring up a ton of them because I think it's corny to bring up praise for myself, but we appreciate it. We see it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Kendall for you taking the time and kind of getting back in the swing of things here. Appreciate the hell out of you. This was very fun. I think it was very fitting for you
Oh
to
yeah.
kind of kick this off with me. So I was very pumped for that. And like I mentioned in the intro for you folks, this show will be back immediately following the Bills preseason game against the Bears on Saturday. Disguise Coverage will be doing the post-game show for each one of the 3 Bills preseason games, starting with the Bears game this Saturday. So I will see you tomorrow, Wednesday, August 7th, 5 p.m. Eastern, for a episode of the Cover One Film Room with myself and Eric Turner. And then I'll see you back here on Saturday, immediately following the Bills preseason game against the Chicago Bears. But that'll do it for us here on this episode of the show. Oh, actually, one thing I did want to mention, tweeted it out earlier today from the main handle. We are doing a Cover One giveaway for, and this one, I like to plug things that I think are nice for people. Giving away 2 Keon Coleman jerseys to a couple of new One Pass members. So sign up for Cover One Pass. Again, the link can be found. I retweeted it earlier. It's on the Cover One main Twitter page as well, at Cover and the number 1. Winners will be announced on September 1st. But yeah, sign up for One Pass and you'll be automatically entered in the giveaway. So a nice little treat to something we really like to offer and give back to the folks who support us in that manner. So yeah. Kendall, appreciate you. Everybody in the chat, appreciate you. Everybody watching post live or whatever, thank you, folks. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you either tomorrow or Saturday or next week for another episode of Disguise Coverage. And until then, Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.